My phone slipped from my trembling hands and hit the floor with a dull thud. The screen still glowed, showing a picture that froze my entire world. It was my daughter, Leah Grace, wearing a white wedding gown. Her smile was radiant, her eyes glowed with happiness, and beside her stood a man I barely recognized, Marcus Hale. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. My heart felt like it had stopped. I picked up the phone again, my fingers shaking as I hit call. Leah, did you get married? I whispered, my voice barely audible. On the other end of the line, there was laughter, cars, people talking, but not a single trace of excitement. Yes, Mama, she said. Yesterday. Yesterday? Those 8 letters hit me harder than any slap. Why didn't you tell me? Why wasn't I invited? I asked, trying not to cry. It was just a small thing, Mama, she said softly. Only family. Only family. The words echoed inside my chest like a cruel bell. I stared at the photo again. Leah in her elegant white dress, the sunlight catching her hair perfectly. But I wasn't there. I wasn't anywhere. It was as if someone had edited me out of her life entirely. That night, I deleted the photo, but the silence that followed was louder than any scream. For the first time in my life, I asked myself a question I never thought I'd face. What does a mother do when her own child stops seeing her as family? My name is Evelyn Grace, and for 66 years, I believed that family meant everything. After my husband Charles passed away, I raised Leah alone. I worked 2 jobs, cleaning houses in New Orleans by day, serving dinners by night, just to make sure she had a better life than I did. I wanted her to reach every dream, no matter what it cost me. And I dreamed of one day standing beside her at her wedding, watching her walk down the aisle, holding her hand, crying tears of pride and joy. But instead, I found out about my daughter's wedding through a Facebook post. The caption read, "Our special day, family complete, without me." I stared at those 2 words until they blurred through my tears. My phone buzzed again. Friends commenting, strangers liking, everyone celebrating a moment I wasn't even told about. I called her once, twice, 3 times, three times. Straight to voicemail. I sent her a message. "Are you okay, baby?" I saw the picture. Hours later, she finally replied, "I'm fine, Mama. We'll talk later." But later never came. That night, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling fan spinning slowly above me, I realized something painful. I had spent my entire life being a mother to someone who no longer needed me. Yet deep inside, something else began to awaken. A quiet fire buried for years under sacrifice and silence. That fire whispered, "You've given everything. Now it's time to take something back." But when Evelyn tried to understand what had gone wrong, she uncovered a secret about her daughter's new life that made her blood run cold. The morning after I saw that photo, I couldn't even bring myself to make coffee. The house felt empty, too quiet, too still, as if it knew something inside me had died. I sat at the kitchen table where Leah and I used to share breakfast every Sunday, the same table where I'd braid her hair before school, where we laughed over spilled cereal, where she once said, "Mama, when I get married, you'll be my maid of honor." Those words echoed in my mind now, slicing through me like glass. I reached for an old photo album from the cabinet, the one I hadn't opened in years. As I turned the pages, Leah's life unfolded before my eyes. Her first day of school, her high school graduation, her 16th birthday. Every smile in those photos felt like a promise she'd broken. I remembered when she was 5 and got pneumonia. I worked 2 jobs then, cleaning houses during the day, sewing at night. For 2 weeks, I barely slept, rushing between work and the hospital. The doctor said she needed rest and medicine I couldn't afford, so I sold my wedding ring to pay for them. When she finally got better, she hugged me and said, "Mama, when I grow up, I'll take care of you." I believed her. I built my entire life around those words. But somewhere along the way, my little girl started to fade. Not from my life, but from my reach. When Leah turned 16, I wanted to give her the kind of party she'd never forget. I saved for 2 years, cleaning extra houses, skipping meals, pawning my jewelry. We rented a small banquet hall downtown. I cooked all the food myself. gumbo, cornbread, and sweet potato pie. When Leah walked in, her eyes sparkled like Christmas lights. She ran up to me, threw her arms around my neck, and said, "You're the best mama in the whole world." Everyone told me the same thing that night, that you could feel the love between us just by being in the room, but that was years ago. Somewhere between the late-night study sessions, the college applications, and the new friends she made, my daughter began to change. She stopped calling every night. She came home late, and when she talked to me, it was always short, rushed, distracted. "Everything okay, baby?" I'd ask. "Yeah, Mama." "Just busy," she'd reply. "Always busy." At first, I blamed myself. Maybe I was too clingy, too involved. But then she met Marcus. He was charming, well-dressed, always polite, but there was something behind his smile I couldn't trust. When he came to dinner for the first time, I made my best dishes: fried chicken, mac and cheese, sweet tea. He thanked me, but his eyes wandered around my small house as if he was inspecting it rather than appreciating it. That night, Leah said, "Mama, maybe don't ask him so many questions next time. He's different from us." Different. The word stung. From that moment, I knew something was shifting, and it wasn't just her life. It was our bond. Weeks turned into months. Leah and Marcus got closer. She stopped spending weekends with me. Our Sunday dinners turned into short phone calls, and eventually silence. Still, I waited, because that's what mothers do. But deep down, I felt it. A storm was coming, and I was standing right in its path. And when Evelyn finally met Marcus's parents for the first time, she realized her daughter's new world wasn't just different. It was a world that no longer had room for her. It was Leah's college graduation. I remember sitting in the auditorium clapping so hard that my hands ached. When she walked across the stage to receive her diploma, I cried like a child. That piece of paper meant more to me than anything I had ever owned, because I knew how many years of sleepless nights, cleaning jobs, and aching bones had gone into it. After the ceremony, Leah came running to me, cap in hand, her eyes shining. "Mama, I did it!" she cried. I hugged her tight, trying to memorize the moment, her scent, her smile, her laughter. That night, she said she wanted to celebrate properly, with Marcus and his parents. I was nervous but excited. Finally, I thought, I'd meet the people who might one day become part of our family. We met at an upscale restaurant in downtown New Orleans, the kind of place where the plates looked too fancy to touch, and the waiters whispered instead of speaking. I wore my best navy blue dress, the one I had saved for special occasions. I couldn't afford new shoes, so I polished my old ones until they shone. When Marcus's parents arrived, they looked like they had stepped out of a magazine. His father, Mr. Hale, was tall, confident, with silver hair and an expensive watch. His mother, Mrs. Hale, wore pearls and perfume that smelled like money. Leah introduced me proudly. "Mama, these are Marcus's parents, Mr. and Mrs. Hale." Mrs. Hale smiled politely, extending her hand. "So nice to meet you, Mrs. Grace," she said. Her voice was calm, too calm, like someone performing a kindness they didn't truly feel. We sat down. They began talking about vacations in Europe, Broadway shows in New York, and wine tastings in Napa Valley. I tried to follow along, but it felt like a language I didn't speak. When it was my turn, I said with a smile, "I clean houses for a living, been doing it for 30 years now." The table fell silent. Even the sound of the background piano seemed to fade. Then Leah quickly changed the subject. "So, Marcus, tell Mama about your new promotion." I smiled politely, pretending not to notice the discomfort, but inside I could feel something breaking. After dinner, Mrs. Hale complimented my dress. "Such a classic style," she said, but her eyes told a different story. When we got home, Leah said quietly, "Mama, maybe next time, don't talk so much about your job." Marcus's parents, they're just not used to that kind of conversation. That kind of conversation. My work, the same work that paid for her education, was now something to be ashamed of. That night I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the calluses on my hands. These hands had held her when she was sick. These hands had scrubbed floors so she could wear nice clothes. And now she was embarrassed of them. I cried silently, the kind of tears that come from a wound too deep for words. It wasn't the Hales who humiliated me. It was the realization that Leah was beginning to see me through their eyes. From that day, things changed. Leah and Marcus spent more time with his family. Our phone calls grew shorter. Her laughter, her visits, her warmth all started fading. Every time I asked when we'd spend time together, she'd say, "Soon, Mama. You know how busy we are." But soon never came, and one Sunday, when I made her favorite meal, baked mac and cheese with sweet tea, she never showed up. That was the first Sunday I ate alone, the first of many. But Evelyn's heartbreak was far from over, because when Leah finally revealed her next big decision, it wasn't just shocking. It was the final step in erasing her mother completely. After that dinner with the Hales, things were never the same. Leah still called me Mama, but the way she said it had changed. It used to sound full of love. Now it sounded like a word from another life. She got her first job after graduation at a fancy corporate office downtown. I was so proud I baked her a pie and took it to her new apartment. When she opened the door, she smiled, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Mama, you didn't have to come all this way," she said, looking nervous. "I just wanted to surprise you, baby," I said softly. Her living room was spotless. Modern furniture, elegant decor, all shades of beige and glass. There was no trace of the cozy clutter that filled our old home. "You can't stay long, right?" she asked, glancing toward the clock. I pretended not to notice the hint of impatience. Instead, I handed her the pie. "Your favorite?" "Pecan." "I made it the way you like it." "Thanks, Mama," she said, placing it on the counter without even opening it. That tiny moment, that single act of indifference, hurt more than anything I could describe. Weeks passed. We spoke less and less. When we did talk, it was about her work, her apartment, her plans with Marcus. I listened to every detail, smiling, even when my chest felt tight. Then one evening she said something that made my heart stop. "Mama, Marcus and I are thinking about moving in together." There was excitement in her voice, the kind she used to have when she talked about birthdays or Christmas. I forced a smile, even though my throat went dry. "That's wonderful, baby. When?" "Soon. We've already found a place," she said quickly. "Marcus says it's in a better neighborhood, closer to his office." I nodded slowly. Better neighborhood, better life, better everything, except me. I tried to hide the tears welling in my eyes. "You know, when I got married, your daddy and I didn't have much," I said gently, "but we had family, and we made it work." She hesitated, fiddling with her phone. "Mama, not everything has to be like it was for you and Dad." Her words were sharp, like a door closing quietly but completely. When she finally moved in with Marcus, she called to tell me, "Mama, we'll still see each other, okay? You can visit. Just call first so we know when you're coming. Call first." After 26 years of being her safe place, I now needed an appointment to see my own child. Still, I agreed. I told myself love was about patience, that she'd come back around once life slowed down. But she didn't. The visits became less frequent, the phone calls shorter, until one day weeks passed without a single word from her. I'd see her life through pictures now, elegant dinners, vacations, new clothes, and always Marcus beside her, smiling, complete. I was the one thing that didn't fit in her new, polished world. I remember the night it finally sank in. I was sitting by the window, watching the rain, when I realized something painful and undeniable. My daughter wasn't drifting away. She was letting me go. I told myself I'd survive it, but deep down, I knew this was only the beginning, the first tear in a bond that was about to rip wide open. And when Leah's next big announcement came, Evelyn thought nothing could shock her anymore until she realized her daughter's simple wedding plan didn't include her at all. The day Leah told me she was getting married was supposed to be one of the happiest days of my life, but instead it was the beginning of the deepest heartbreak I would ever know. It was a quiet Sunday morning when she called. "Mama, guess what?" she said, her voice light and cheerful. I smiled instantly. It had been weeks since I'd heard that tone. "What is it, baby?" Marcus proposed last night. "I'm getting married." For a moment, my heart swelled with joy. I stood frozen in the kitchen, my hand over my mouth, tears already forming. Oh, Leah, my baby girl, I'm so proud of you. I started picturing it all. The white dress, the flowers, the music, the moment I'd walk her down the aisle. I'd waited my whole life for that day. But before I could ask a single question, she said, Mama, we're keeping it small. Just something simple. Nothing big. Simple, I repeated softly. That's fine, baby. We'll make it special anyway. She hesitated. Yeah, it's going to be just close family and friends. Something about her tone didn't feel right. It was careful, almost rehearsed. Do you have a date yet? I asked, trying to hide the tremor in my voice. Not yet. We're still planning, she said quickly. I'll let you know once we figure things out. That was the first lie, and it came wrapped in a smile I couldn't see. Over the next few months, Leah barely mentioned the wedding. Every time I brought it up, she changed the subject. How are the plans going? Oh, Mama, we're still deciding. Do you need help with anything? I'll let you know soon. Always soon. One evening, I saw her post a photo online, a picture of her and Marcus standing in front of a wedding boutique. The caption said, Just browsing. I commented, Beautiful. Can't wait to see what you pick, baby. She didn't reply. That night, for the first time, I felt a knot in my chest, a strange, heavy sense that something was being kept from me. Then came the last week of May. She canceled our lunch twice in a row. When we finally met, she looked distracted. Her phone kept buzzing, and she avoided eye contact. Everything okay? I asked. Yeah, just work stuff, she said, smiling too quickly, but I could tell. Something was off. Later that week, she told me she couldn't meet on our usual Tuesday morning. I have a meeting that day, Mama. It was odd. Tuesday mornings had always been our tradition, our special time, the only day of the week I didn't work, the only morning we always shared. Still, I smiled and said, That's all right, baby. We'll do it next week. But there was no next week. Because on that very Tuesday morning, the day we were supposed to have breakfast together, the truth came crashing down on me in the cruelest way possible. I sat down with my coffee, scrolling through Facebook when I saw it, a photo that stole the breath right out of my lungs. There was Leah, in a white wedding dress, standing beside Marcus, smiling like the happiest woman on earth. And below the photo, the caption read, A finally married. Thank you to our families for making this day perfect. Our families, plural. But I wasn't in the picture, not in the captions, not in the comments. It was as if I had never existed. That day, I didn't cry. I just sat there, frozen, holding my coffee cup, staring at a life that used to include me, until it didn't. And in that silence, one truth echoed louder than anything else. My daughter hadn't forgotten me. She had erased me. But when Evelyn finally gathered the courage to confront her daughter, the cold response she received shattered what little was left of her heart. I don't remember how long I sat there after seeing that picture. Minutes? Hours? It didn't matter. All I knew was that I couldn't breathe. I kept staring at the screen, at Leah's smile, at Marcus's proud expression, at the words, family complete. Every time I blinked, the image burned deeper into my mind. Finally, my shaking hands reached for the phone. I called her once, no answer, twice, straight to voicemail. The third time, she finally picked up. Her voice was calm, almost too calm. Hi, Mama. Leah? I said softly, struggling to steady my voice. I saw the pictures. There was silence on the other end. I just need to know why. Why didn't you tell me? Why wasn't I there? She hesitated. I could hear her breathing, slow, careful. Mama, it all happened so fast. We just decided to do something small. Ma? I repeated, my voice trembling. Small doesn't mean secret, Leah. You got married. I should have been there. Her tone hardened a little. Mama, please don't make this a big deal. It was our day. We didn't want any stress, any drama. Drama? The word hit me like a slap. Is that what I am to you now? A source of drama? I could feel tears burning my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I raised you alone, Leah. I worked until my hands bled so you could go to college, so you could have this life. And you couldn't even tell me you were getting married? Mama, please, she whispered, don't do this right now. Then when, Leah? I snapped, my voice cracking. When am I supposed to ask? On your anniversary? There was a pause, a long one, the kind of silence that tells you everything you don't want to hear. Finally, she said, "You just wouldn't have fit in, Mama. Marcus's family wanted something very private, very refined." Refined. That word again. The same word she'd used after dinner with the Hales. "So I wasn't refined enough for your wedding?" I asked quietly. She didn't answer. I could hear the sound of cars in the background, the city moving on, while my entire world stood still. "Leah," I whispered, my voice breaking, "you didn't just leave me out of a wedding. You left me out of your life." "Mama, I have to go," she said quickly. "We'll talk later, okay?" And then, click. The line went dead. I stared at my phone, her name still glowing on the screen, and for the first time in my life, I realized I was completely alone. I thought of all the nights I stayed awake, waiting for her to come home, the lunches I packed, the dresses I sewed, the birthdays I celebrated alone so she could go out with friends. Every sacrifice, every tear, every prayer, all erased with a single decision. My daughter hadn't forgotten me. She had chosen to live a life where I didn't exist. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat by the window, watching the streetlights flicker, wondering how love so pure could turn into something that cold. And in that silence, a different kind of feeling began to rise. Not sadness this time, but something stronger. A quiet, burning strength that whispered, "If she could build a life without you, maybe you could build one without her." But before Evelyn could move on, a box of old memories would reopen wounds she thought had healed and reveal a painful secret from Leah's past that changed everything she believed about their bond. The next morning, I woke up feeling hollow. My house, once full of warmth and laughter, now felt like a museum of memories that no longer belonged to me. Every corner whispered her name. Every corner whispered her name. Every framed photo stared back like a ghost. I tried cleaning to distract myself, but even that reminded me of her. So I went to the attic, a place I hadn't visited in years. If my heart couldn't find peace, maybe my hands could. That's when I saw it, an old wooden trunk tucked beneath a layer of dust. It was my mother's trunk, one I'd turned into a memory box after Leah was born. I dragged it into the light and slowly lifted the lid. Inside were pieces of my life. Leah's birth certificate, her first report cards, the tiny shoes she wore to church, and an envelope marked Sweet 16. I took a deep breath and began to go through them one by one. The first thing I pulled out was a photo from her confirmation day. Leah was 8, dressed in white lace, her hair tied in ribbons. In the photo, she was hugging me so tight, her smile wide and pure. I could almost hear her small voice saying, "Mama, I love you the most in the whole world." That same night came flooding back to me. How I had worked double shifts for months just to rent a hall and cook for the entire family. How Leah had danced barefoot to her favorite gospel song, spinning like a little angel. And how, before falling asleep, she whispered, "Mama, when I grow up, I'll make you proud." Tears rolled down my cheeks. Some promises are meant to be broken, others simply forgotten. Then I found another picture, her Sweet 16. She looked stunning in that lavender gown I'd sewn myself. I remembered the smell of fried chicken, the music, the laughter. That night, she'd called me onto the dance floor. "Mama, come dance with me," she'd said, grabbing my hand. As we twirled under the fairy light, she whispered, "You're my best friend. I'll never leave you." But she did, not in anger, not in cruelty, but in the quiet, gradual way love fades when pride and shame take its place. At the bottom of the trunk, I found something that made my hands tremble, a folded pink letter decorated with little hearts drawn in crayon. The handwriting was Leah's, neat, careful, filled with innocence. It read, "H. Dear Mama, tomorrow I start college, and I want you to know you're my hero. You worked so hard for me. I promise I'll never forget what you did. When I become successful, I'll take care of you, just like you took care of me. Love always, Leah." I read that letter 3 times before my vision blurred with tears. This was the same daughter who had just excluded me from her wedding, the same girl who once vowed never to forget me. Somewhere between that promise and this reality, something had gone terribly wrong. And as I sat there, clutching that letter to my chest, I realized the distance between us hadn't started with Marcus or his parents. It had started long before that. It had begun the day Leah decided she was ashamed of where she came from, ashamed of me. That night, as I placed the letter back in the trunk, I didn't just cry for the mother I'd been. I cried for the daughter I no longer knew. But even as the pain tore through me, a new thought began to take root. If love could fade, maybe dignity could grow in its place. And just when Evelyn thought she couldn't hurt any more, a phone call from her outspoken sister would change everything and push her toward a decision that would shock everyone. 3 days passed after I found that letter, and the silence in my house felt heavier than ever. Every sound, the ticking clock, the creaking floor, the hum of the refrigerator, reminded me that I was alone. I hadn't heard from Leah, not a text, not a call, just silence, cruel, deliberate silence. On the 4th morning, my phone finally rang. The sound startled me. For one wild second, I thought it might be her, but when I looked at the screen, the name made me smile through my tears. Gloria, my sister, my rock, the one person who never sugarcoated the truth, even when it hurt. Evelyn Grace, her voice came through loud and sharp. I heard what that girl of yours did. You mean to tell me she got married and didn't even tell you? I sighed, rubbing my temples. Yes, Gloria, it's true. Lord have mercy, she said. That child's lost her mind. I told you Marcus was bad news. He always had that smug little grin like he owned the world. I didn't answer. I just stared at the window, watching the sunlight spill across the floor. Evie, she said more softly now, you've spent your whole life giving, haven't you? To Charles, to Leah, to everyone but yourself. I don't regret it, I said quietly. I just didn't think it would end like this. Gloria sighed heavily. Sweetheart, it didn't end. You just stopped being the person she could take for granted. Her words stung because they were true. You've been living for her since the day she was born, she continued, and now she's living her own life without looking back. But what about you, Evie? When's the last time you lived for yourself? I stayed silent. I didn't know how to answer that. Because deep down, I knew the answer, never. That night, Gloria came over with a bottle of sweet tea and her unstoppable energy. She cleaned my kitchen like it offended her, lit a candle, and sat me down at the table. Listen, she said, you can sit here crying about what your daughter did, or you can stand up and remind this world who the hell you are. I laughed through my tears. I'm a 66-year-old woman who cleans houses for a living. Gloria leaned in, her eyes fierce. You're a survivor. You raised a child on your own. You built a life from nothing. That's not just surviving, that's strength. Her words hit something deep inside me, something that had been buried under years of exhaustion and quiet suffering. Maybe I had forgotten who I was. Maybe I had spent so long being Leah's mother that I'd forgotten how to be Evelyn Grace. Gloria reached across the table and took my hand. Start small, she said. Fix up the house. Go out. Meet people. You deserve joy too, Evie. When she left that night, I stood by the window again, staring at the city lights. For the first time in months, I didn't cry. Instead, I took a deep breath and whispered to myself, maybe it's time. I didn't know what that meant yet, but I knew it was the beginning of something new. And as the night wrapped around me, I realized Gloria was right. Maybe losing Leah wasn't the end of my story. Maybe it was the beginning of mine. But just as Evelyn started to rediscover herself, an unexpected visitor would show up at her door, bringing news that would drag her right back into Leah's world. It had been almost 2 weeks since Gloria's visit, and for the first time in a long while, I felt lighter. Not happy, not healed, but lighter. I started going on morning walks again, just me, the crisp New Orleans air, and the sound of my old sneakers on the sidewalk. I smiled at strangers. I bought fresh flowers for the house, little things, but they mattered. Every night I'd light a candle, make myself tea, and whisper a quiet prayer. Not for Leah this time, but for strength. Strength to live without the constant ache of waiting. Then, one afternoon, just as the sun was dipping behind the trees, someone knocked on my door. 3 slow knocks. I froze. For a second, I thought maybe it was Gloria again. She had a habit of showing up unannounced. But when I opened the door, my heart sank. It wasn't Gloria. It was Marcus. He looked uncomfortable standing there in his crisp white shirt and polished shoes. His eyes darted around, avoiding mine. Marcus, I said slowly, what are you doing here? Mrs. Grace, he began, his voice unusually soft. I came to talk. I crossed my arms. About what? I didn't realize we had anything left to discuss. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. I know Leah hasn't called, and I know how everything went down wasn't right. I stared at him, saying nothing. He continued, I just thought you should know. Things haven't been easy. She's been going through a lot. My chest tightened. What do you mean? Is she okay? He hesitated. She's fine physically, but mentally she's been distant. She barely talks, barely eats. She quit her job 2 weeks ago. I felt my pulse quicken. What happened? Did you do something to her? He shook his head quickly. No, nothing like that. It's just she's been under pressure. My parents, they've been hard on her. They expect a lot. And when she doesn't live up to it, they make her feel small. I clenched my fists. Like they made me feel? He looked at the floor. Yeah, maybe worse. For a moment, I didn't know what to feel. Anger, pity, or confusion. This was the man who had helped build the wall between me and my daughter. And now, here he was, standing in my doorway, talking like an ally. Why are you telling me this? I asked quietly. Because she won't talk to anyone else, he said. And I thought, maybe you could reach her. I wanted to scream at him, tell him it was too late, that he had taken my daughter from me, but instead I just whispered, she made her choice, Marcus. I know, he said softly, but maybe she regrets it. He handed me a small envelope before walking away. She wrote this last night, he said. She didn't want to send it herself. I thought you should have it. I stared at the envelope long after he left. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a short note, written in Leah's neat handwriting. Mama, I know I've hurt you. I don't expect forgiveness, but I need you to know I never stopped loving you. I just didn't know how to live between two worlds. I'm sorry. Leah. Tears spilled down my cheeks, blurring the words. 2 worlds. One of them was hers, the other was mine, and somewhere between them, love had drowned. That night, I sat by the window again, holding that letter to my chest. For the first time, I didn't just miss my daughter. I worried for her, because those words didn't sound like peace. They sounded like a cry for help. And when Evelyn decided to visit Leah the next day, what she found behind that perfect suburban door was something no mother should ever have to see. The next morning, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Leah's letter kept replaying in my mind, especially that one line. I didn't know how to live between 2 worlds. What did that mean? And why did her words sound like a goodbye? I tried to convince myself to stay home, to let her reach out when she was ready. But the thought of her alone, broken and silent, was too much to bear. By noon, I'd made up my mind. I changed into a clean blouse, grabbed my purse, and caught the next bus toward the neighborhood where she lived, that shiny, picture-perfect suburb filled with trimmed hedges and quiet streets. As I walked up to her front door, I hesitated. The house looked calm from the outside, sunlight glinting off the windows, flowers blooming neatly in the yard. But something about it felt too still, too silent. I knocked once, then again, no answer. Finally, the door opened a few inches. Leah stood there. She looked nothing like the radiant bride from those wedding photos. Her eyes were swollen, her hair tied back carelessly, her face pale as if she hadn't slept in days. Mama, she whispered, her voice cracking. Oh, baby, I breathed, stepping forward. Are you okay? For a second, she just stood there, frozen. Then she suddenly pulled me into a hug so tight I could barely breathe. I felt her body tremble against mine. Mama, I'm so sorry, she cried softly. I didn't know what else to do. My heart broke all over again. I held her close and whispered, It's okay, baby. I'm here now. She led me inside, glancing nervously down the hallway as if afraid someone might see us. The living room was spotless, but it was the kind of spotless that didn't feel lived in, like a museum more than a home. Marcus wasn't there. His absence filled the air like a shadow. I looked at Leah closely. She was thinner. Her hands had faint bruises on them. Leah, I said carefully, what's been happening here? She bit her lip, looking toward the stairs. Mama, please, don't make me say it. My stomach twisted. Is he hurting you? Her silence was louder than any answer. Tears rolled down her cheeks, and she finally whispered, He's not the man I thought he was. I felt the blood drain from my face. She went on, her voice trembling. At first, everything was perfect. Dinners, gifts, trips. But then the criticism started. How I talked, how I dressed, how I cooked. Nothing was ever good enough for him or his parents. She covered her face, sobbing. If I said something wrong, he'd get cold, distant, sometimes angry. He never hit me, Mama, not yet, but I could see it in his eyes. I reached for her hand and held it tightly. No man who loves you should make you feel small, I said, my voice steady despite the pain. You don't deserve this, Leah. She looked at me helplessly. I didn't know where else to go. Marcus left for work this morning after another fight. I thought he'd be gone all day. Her words broke something inside me, the fear, the guilt, the silence. It all collapsed at once. You're coming home with me, I said firmly. She shook her head. I can't. He'd find me. I stood up. Let him look. Let the whole world look. But I'm not leaving you here another second. For the first time in years, Leah looked at me not as a burden or embarrassment, but as a mother, her mother. As we gathered her things in silence, I noticed something on the mantel, a wedding photo of her and Marcus, but the glass was cracked, straight down the middle. Evelyn thought saving her daughter would be simple, but that single act of protection would soon ignite a storm that neither of them were ready to face. By the time we reached my house, Leah was shaking. She hadn't said much during the drive, just stared out the window, clutching her bag like a child holding on to safety. When we walked inside, I guided her straight to her old room, the one with the faded lilac curtains and the photo frame still hanging on the wall. It was dusty, but familiar, home. I made her tea, the same way I used to when she was little. She sat at the kitchen table staring at her cup. Her hands were trembling. Mama, she whispered, what if he finds out I'm here? I reached over and held her hand firmly. Then he'll find out you're not alone anymore. She nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. For a long time, neither of us spoke. The silence was heavy, but it wasn't the kind that hurt. It was the kind that slowly started to heal. That night, I tucked her into bed like I used to when she was 5. She fell asleep with her hand wrapped around mine, and for the first time in years, I felt something warm in my chest, a tiny flicker of peace. But peace doesn't last long in this world, not when secrets have been buried too deep. The next morning, I was frying eggs when I heard it. A sharp knock on the door, 3 knocks, hard, angry. I froze. Leah walked into the kitchen, pale and trembling. Mama, he's here. Before I could respond, the knocks came again, louder this time. Then his voice followed, deep and furious. Leah, open this door right now. I looked at my daughter, terrified, small, shaking, and in that moment something inside me snapped. No, I whispered, you stay here. I wiped my hands on a towel and walked to the door. When I opened it, Marcus stood there, his jaw tight, his eyes burning with anger. Where is she? He demanded. I crossed my arms. Not your concern anymore. His nostrils flared. Mrs. Grace, this is between me and my wife. No, I said firmly. This is between a man who broke a woman's spirit and a mother who won't let him do it again. He took a step closer, lowering his voice. You're making a mistake. She's my wife. She belongs with me. She doesn't belong to anyone, I said, refusing to move. His jaw clenched. For a moment, I thought he might push past me, but then he smiled, that same fake, charming smile he wore the first time I met him. You think you're helping her? You're just making it worse. She'll come back. She always does. I stared him dead in the eye. Not this time. Behind me, I heard a voice, trembling but strong. Marcus. Leah stood in the doorway, her hands clenched, her shoulders squared. This is my home now, she said. Leave. His expression shifted from anger to disbelief. You don't mean that. I do. For a moment, no one moved. Then he laughed bitterly. You'll regret this. And with that, he turned and walked away. I closed the door and locked it, my heart pounding in my chest. Leah burst into tears. He's not going to stop, Mama. I held her tight. Then he'll have to go through me first. In that moment, I wasn't just her mother. I was her shield, and nothing in this world was going to break us again. That night, we sat together on the porch, watching the quiet street outside, knowing the calm wouldn't last. But for the first time in years, we faced the storm together. Evelyn thought the worst was over, but the next morning, a single letter slipped under her door would prove that Marcus wasn't done yet. The morning after Marcus showed up, the house felt unusually still. Even the air seemed tense, heavy, like it was waiting for something to happen. Leah barely slept that night. I could hear her pacing in her old bedroom, whispering prayers, the floorboards creaking with every step. Every little sound made her flinch. I told her, "You're safe here, baby. He's not coming back." But deep down, I wasn't sure I believed it myself. After breakfast, I went outside to grab the mail. A stack of envelopes sat in the box, bills, a catalog, a church flyer, and one plain white envelope with no return address. No name, no stamp, just my house number written in sharp, angry handwriting. I frowned, turning it over in my hands. A chill ran through me. When I opened it, my stomach dropped. Inside was a single sheet of paper. No greeting, no signature, just one sentence, "You can't hide her forever." My hands went cold. For a moment I couldn't move. Then I felt it, that deep, familiar fear every mother knows, the kind that sits in your gut and whispers, "Something's coming." I didn't tell Leah right away. I folded the note, slipped it into my apron pocket, and tried to carry on as if nothing had happened. We cleaned, cooked, watched TV, but Leah was distant, her smile fragile, forced. At one point she looked at me and said, "Mama, do you ever wish I'd never married him?" I took her hand and squeezed it gently. "No, baby, I just wish you'd seen your worth before he made you doubt it." She nodded slowly, her eyes filling with tears. "I used to think love meant sacrificing parts of yourself to make someone happy." "And now?" I asked softly. "Now I think love shouldn't make you feel afraid." Her words cut deep, because I could see how much she meant them. My little girl wasn't lost. She was fighting to find herself again. But the world outside our walls had other plans. That evening, as the sun dipped low, I stepped out onto the porch for some air. The street was quiet, but something felt off. A black car sat parked across the road, engine off, windows tinted. It hadn't been there before. I tried to ignore it. Maybe it was a neighbor's visitor, I told myself. But when I looked again an hour later, it was still there. Still. Watching. Waiting. I locked every door and window before going to bed that night. Leah was already asleep, clutching her pillow like a child. I sat on the edge of my bed, holding that letter again. The handwriting, the words, they echoed in my mind. You can't hide her forever. It wasn't just a threat. It was a promise. Around midnight, I heard something, a faint sound like gravel crunching outside. I got up slowly, heart pounding, and peeked through the curtain. The car was gone, but in its place, right in front of my gate, lay another white envelope. I stepped outside, my hands trembling, and picked it up. This time, the message was shorter, just 2 words, "Next time." That was when I realized Marcus wasn't finished. He wasn't going to just let Leah go. He was waiting, watching, planning. I went back inside and locked the door. For a long moment, I stood in the hallway, listening to Leah's quiet breathing from her room. And right then, I made a silent vow. He could send all the letters he wanted. He could stalk, threaten, or whisper in the dark. But if he wanted to hurt my daughter again, he'd have to come through me first. But just as Evelyn prepared to protect her home, a late-night phone call from an unknown number would reveal a truth about Marcus that changed everything. The clock read 12,047 a.m. when the phone rang. The sound cut through the silence like a scream. I jolted awake, my heart pounding in my chest. Leah's room was quiet. She was still asleep. The phone kept ringing, louder with every second. I reached for it, my hands trembling. "Hello?" For a moment, no one answered. Then a man's voice came through, low, steady, unfamiliar. "Is this Evelyn Grace?" "Yes," I said cautiously. "Who's this?" The man hesitated. Ma'am, my name's Detective Harris. I'm calling from the New Orleans Police Department. My chest tightened instantly. Is Leah okay? She's fine, ma'am. This isn't about her. It's about Marcus Hale. The sound of that name made my skin crawl. I sat up straighter, gripping the phone tighter. What about him? The detective took a breath. Do you know where he is right now? No, I said. I haven't seen him since yesterday morning. Why? Another pause. Then he said the words that made my blood run cold. Marcus Hale is under investigation for domestic assault and financial fraud. We've been tracking him for months. For a second, I couldn't breathe. It felt like the world tilted beneath me. What? What did he do? I whispered. Ma'am, I can't share details, but we have several reports. His previous partner filed charges for emotional abuse and coercion. She later dropped the case, but the evidence remained. Previous partner? I repeated, my voice barely a whisper. You mean before Leah? Yes, ma'am. My heart sank. He had done this before, broken someone else before he broke my daughter. The detective continued. We also have reason to believe he's been hiding large sums of money, possibly stolen from his company. I pressed a hand to my forehead, trying to make sense of it. So you're saying he's dangerous? Yes, ma'am. And if he's been threatening you or your daughter, you need to let us know immediately. I swallowed hard. He sent letters, I said quietly. No name, but I know they're from him. Keep them, the detective said firmly. Every single one. Don't throw anything away. We might need them. When the call ended, I just sat there, the hum of the silence wrapping around me like a weight. Marcus wasn't just cruel, he was dangerous, and now he was desperate. The next morning, Leah found me sitting at the table, still clutching the phone, my eyes swollen from crying. Mama? What happened? She asked softly. I looked up at her, my daughter, my baby, and for a moment I didn't know how to tell her. Leah? I said finally, I need you to listen to me carefully. She frowned. You're scaring me. I took her hands in mine. Marcus isn't who you think he is. He's under investigation for hurting people, for lying, for stealing. Her lips parted in shock. That can't be true. He'd never... He would, I said, cutting her off gently, and he already has. You said it yourself. He made you feel small, afraid. That's not love, Leah. That's control. Tears filled her eyes. She shook her head, whispering, I thought he'd change. I pulled her into my arms, holding her tightly. People like him don't change, baby. They just get better at pretending. For a long time, we stayed that way, two broken hearts trying to stitch themselves back together. But deep down, I knew this wasn't over. Men like Marcus didn't just disappear quietly. They made sure to leave a mark. That afternoon, I went through every drawer and box in the house, gathering the letters he'd sent, the photos, anything that tied him to Leah. Each one felt heavier than the last, and when I was done, I whispered to myself, this ends with me. Because I wasn't just a mother anymore, I was a witness, and I was ready to fight back. But just when Evelyn thought she finally had the upper hand, a chilling discovery in Leah's car would reveal Marcus's final move, and it was something far darker than either of them imagined. By the next morning, I had made up my mind. I wasn't going to live in fear anymore. No more sleepless nights, no more silence. I was ready to go to the police with everything, the letters, the threats, the detective's call. But fate had a way of showing me things I wasn't ready for. When Leah woke up, I told her, we need to gather your things and take them to the station. The police need proof of everything. She nodded weakly. Her eyes were tired, her face pale, but I could see a flicker of determination in her, the kind of quiet strength that reminded me of her father. We stepped outside together. The morning sun felt too bright, too warm, almost mocking. Leah's car was still parked by the curb, right where she'd left it 2 days earlier. Let me grab the box from the back seat, she said. She opened the car door, leaned in, and froze. Her body went completely still. Leah? I called. She didn't answer. When I walked closer, I saw what she was staring at, and my heart dropped into my stomach. There, on the driver's seat, was another white envelope. Same handwriting, same sharp, cruel strokes. But this one had something inside, something thicker than paper. Leah picked it up carefully, her fingers trembling. "Mama," she whispered, "he's been inside my car." I looked around instinctively, scanning the street, the houses, the corners. Everything was quiet, too quiet. "Open it," I said softly. She hesitated, then tore it open. A small flash drive fell out onto her lap. There was also a folded note, just 3 words, scrawled in the same angry handwriting: "Watch and learn." Inside the house, we plugged the flash drive into my old laptop. For a moment, the screen was black. Then a video started playing. It was footage of Leah's car, filmed from behind a tree, at night. You could see her walking out of Marcus's house, carrying a bag, crying. Then another clip, her sitting on our porch, hugging me, both of us unaware we were being watched. Leah covered her mouth, gasping. He filmed us? My blood turned to ice. Every muscle in my body tightened. This wasn't just control anymore. This was obsession. There were several more clips. Leah walking into a grocery store, me checking the mailbox, even a shot through my living room window. That one made my stomach twist. He had been here, outside my home, watching. I reached over and shut the laptop. "We're taking this to the police. Now." Leah nodded, tears streaming down her face. "He's lost his mind, Mama." "No," I said firmly. "He never had one." As we drove toward the station, Leah kept glancing out the window, jumping at every car that passed us. "He won't stop," she whispered. "He'll keep following us." I reached across and squeezed her hand. "Then we'll make sure he never gets the chance." When we arrived, Detective Harris met us at the front desk. We handed him the flash drive and the letters. He frowned as he looked through them. "This is serious," he said. "We'll file an immediate restraining order. But until it's approved, you both need to stay somewhere safe. Don't go home." "Where will we go?" Leah asked quietly. The detective looked at us for a long moment. "Somewhere he can't find you," he said. I nodded. "Then that's exactly where we'll be." That night, as we packed a few bags and prepared to leave, I looked around the house one last time. This home had held so many memories, laughter, love, pain, and now fear. But I wasn't afraid anymore, because for the first time in years, Leah was beside me, and I wasn't fighting to hold on to her anymore. I was fighting to protect her. Evelyn thought the nightmare was finally ending, but just before they could escape, one last unexpected visitor would force her to make a choice that could change everything. The house was almost empty. Most of our things were already packed. 2 small suitcases, 1 box of photos, and the envelope of evidence for Detective Harris. Leah was upstairs, folding the last of her clothes. Outside, the evening sun was fading fast, washing the sky in deep orange and violet. It should have been beautiful, but it only made me anxious. I kept glancing at the window, half expecting that black car to roll up again. We were leaving in less than an hour. A friend of Gloria's had offered us a place out of town, quiet, safe, hidden. For the first time in weeks, I thought maybe, just maybe, the nightmare was ending. Then came the knock. It wasn't loud, just 3 soft taps, slow, deliberate, the kind of knock that carries too much confidence. I froze mid-step. "Leah," I called softly, "stay upstairs." My heart pounded as I walked toward the door. Every instinct screamed, "Don't open it," but I couldn't ignore the possibility that it was the police following up. "Who's there?" I asked. Silence. Then a voice, low, familiar, terrifyingly calm. "Evelyn, it's me, Marcus." My throat went dry. He shouldn't have known where we were. He shouldn't have been here at all. "Go away," I said sharply. "You're not welcome. I just want to talk," he replied, his voice smooth as glass. 5 minutes. That's all. I gripped the doorframe, my pulse racing. "Talk to the police." "I did," he said, and something in his tone made my stomach twist. "They can't prove anything." Behind me, the stairs creaked. Leah was standing halfway down, pale and shaking. "Mama, is it?" I whispered. "Stay back." Marcus's voice hardened. "I just want my wife to hear me out before she ruins both our lives." My blood boiled. "Ruins? You already did that yourself." He laughed softly. "That's where you're wrong. Everything I've done, it was for her, to make her better, to protect her from you." That last sentence hit like a blade. "From me?" I hissed. "What kind of man hides behind lies and calls it love?" He didn't answer, but I could feel him standing there, just inches away, his shadow spilling through the gap at the bottom of the door. Then Leah's voice broke the tension. "Marcus," she said shakily, "go home." The silence that followed was unbearable, and then quietly he said, "If you walk away now, you'll never see me again. But if you file that report, I promise you'll regret it." I took a deep breath and opened the door, just enough for him to see my eyes. "You've already taken too much from us," I said. "This ends tonight." For a moment his face changed. The charm slipped away, replaced by something raw and furious. He stepped forward, but I raised the small pepper spray can Gloria had given me weeks ago. "Try it," I warned. He froze, eyes narrowing. Then, slowly, he backed away. "You'll wish you hadn't done that," he muttered before walking down the steps and disappearing into the dark. Leah ran into my arms, trembling. "Mama, he'll come back." I held her tight. "Maybe he will, but next time he won't find us here." Within 20 minutes, the car was packed. As we pulled away, I looked at the house, our old life, our pain, everything we were leaving behind, and whispered a prayer of gratitude and grief. Because sometimes survival means saying goodbye before you're ready. But as Evelyn and Leah drove toward their new life, a single flashing light in the rearview mirror would remind them. Their past wasn't finished chasing them yet. The road out of New Orleans stretched endlessly ahead, the asphalt glinting under the pale moonlight. The hum of the tires was the only sound inside the car, steady and low, like a heartbeat trying to calm itself. Leah sat beside me, staring out the window. Her hands were clenched in her lap, her eyes wide and distant. Neither of us had spoken much since we left the house. Every few minutes, I caught her glancing at the side mirror as if she expected the darkness to spit Marcus out of it. I reached over and touched her arm. "We're okay, baby," I said softly. "We're leaving all that behind." She nodded, but her voice trembled when she whispered, "He looked so calm when he left." That's what scares me. I didn't tell her I felt the same way. Instead, I kept my eyes on the road, my fingers gripping the wheel tighter with every mile. Gloria's friend, a woman named Renee, lived 2 hours away in a quiet rural town, a safe place. No neighbors too close, no one asking questions. That's all I wanted, a little peace. We passed the city limits, the street lights fading behind us. The road grew darker, lined with thick trees that swayed gently in the night breeze. For a while it felt like the world had swallowed us whole. Then I saw it, a pair of headlights in the rearview mirror, far back at first, distant, harmless. But something about the way they followed us made my stomach knot. They stayed at the same distance for miles, never closer, never farther, just there, watching. Leah noticed too. "Mama," she whispered, "that car's been behind us since the gas station." I forced a small smile, probably just heading the same way. But even as I said it, I didn't believe it. Another 10 minutes passed. The headlights were still there. Then they flickered. Once, twice, like a warning. My pulse quickened. "Hold on," I muttered, pressing my foot a little harder on the gas. The car sped up. So did the lights. Leah's voice shook. "It's him, isn't it?" I didn't answer. I just drove faster, the wind roaring through the open crack in the window. The empty road stretched endlessly ahead, and for a terrifying moment, I felt like we were the only two people left in the world. Finally, I spotted a sign in the distance, "County line, 5 miles. If we could just make it to the border, there'd be a small sheriff's station nearby." "Almost there," I said, more to myself than to Leah. The car behind us closed the distance, its engine a low growl, its headlights glaring brighter. Leah started crying softly. "Mama, I can't do this again. I can't." I reached over and squeezed her hand. "Yes, you can. We've come too far to turn back now." Then suddenly the headlights disappeared. Just gone. No car, no sound, nothing. For a second, I thought I'd imagined the whole thing. I slowed down, scanning the road behind us, empty. Leah exhaled shakily. "Maybe he turned off." I nodded, but my gut told me something else. Marcus wasn't the type to disappear. He was the type to wait. We reached Renee's house a little after midnight, a small cottage on a quiet hill surrounded by pine trees and the soft hum of crickets. Renee greeted us with open arms, warm and welcoming. "You're safe here," she said. "No one will bother you." But as I stepped inside and looked back at the road one last time, I could have sworn, just for a heartbeat, that I saw those same headlights flicker far in the distance. Evelyn believed they had finally escaped, but the next morning a single sound outside Renee's house would prove that the nightmare was far from over. The first night in Renee's house felt almost unreal. After everything we'd been through, the silence seemed too soft, too peaceful, like the world had hit pause just to let us breathe. Renee had given us her guest room, a small but cozy space with floral curtains and a quilt that smelled faintly of lavender. For the first time in months, Leah fell asleep without crying. I watched her for a while, her chest rising and falling slowly, the kind of sleep she hadn't had since before the wedding. I whispered a quiet prayer. Please, Lord, let this be the start of peace. Then I lay down beside her and closed my eyes. But peace doesn't stay long when danger still knows your name. It was around 3 a.m. when I heard it, a faint sound, something scraping softly against the window pane, slow, steady, deliberate. At first, I thought maybe it was just a branch brushing in the wind, but then it came again, louder this time. A metallic tap, tap, tap. My eyes flew open. I turned my head slowly toward the window, my pulse drumming in my ears. The curtains fluttered slightly from the breeze, but I could see a shadow moving outside, tall, thin, shifting from side to side. For a second, I couldn't breathe. Then the shadow leaned closer, and I saw it, a hand, pressing flat against the glass. Leah, I whispered urgently, shaking her awake. Baby, get up! She stirred groggily, confusion clouding her eyes. What's wrong? I didn't answer. I just pointed toward the window. The color drained from her face instantly. She clutched my arm, whispering, No, please, no. The hand slid away from the glass. Then came the sound of footsteps, slow, crunching against the gravel outside. I grabbed the phone, but there was no signal. We were too far out of town. Renee's room was at the other end of the hall. I told Leah, stay quiet, stay behind me. We crept toward the door, every creak of the floorboards echoing like thunder. I could still hear the footsteps outside, moving toward the front porch. Then came another sound, a faint metallic click, the doorknob. Someone was trying to open it. Renee appeared in the hallway, holding a flashlight in one hand and a baseball bat in the other. Her voice was firm, calm. What's going on? Before I could answer, the porch light flickered, then went out completely. Darkness swallowed the house. Leah whimpered softly, and Renee gripped my arm. Back door, she whispered. Now! We hurried toward the kitchen, the sound of footsteps now circling the house. Whoever it was, they were moving fast. When we reached the back door, I turned the knob slowly and pushed it open. The night air hit us, cold, damp, and heavy with silence. We stepped outside, moving toward the trees behind the house. That's when Leah gasped. In the distance, parked near the edge of the property, was a car, black, familiar. Its headlights flashed once, then twice. I grabbed Leah's hand. Run! We sprinted through the trees, branches scratching our arms, the sound of our breathing mixing with the rustle of leaves. When we finally stopped, hidden behind an old shed, I looked back. The car was gone. No sound, no movement. Just the faint hum of crickets and the pounding of my own heart. Leah collapsed to the ground, shaking. Mama, she cried, he found us. He'll never stop. I pulled her close, whispering fiercely, yes, he did find us, but this time we're ready, because I wasn't the same woman he once scared into silence. I was a mother who'd already lost too much to fear. As dawn broke over the quiet town, Evelyn made a decision that would turn the hunter into the hunted and bring Marcus face to face with his own reckoning. The morning light crept through the trees like a fragile promise. The sky was calm, painted in soft pink and gold, but inside me a storm was brewing that no sunrise could quiet. We hadn't slept after that long night. Leah sat on the couch wrapped in a blanket, her face pale and her eyes hollow. Renee brought us coffee, her hand shaking just slightly as she poured. No one spoke for a long time. The silence felt heavy, not peaceful, but tense, waiting for something to break it. Finally, I said, he's not going to stop. Leah looked up, her lips trembling. Mama, we should just keep running. Go somewhere far, another state, another name. I shook my head. No, baby, we've been running long enough. Renee frowned. Evelyn, you can't face that man. He's dangerous. I took a deep breath. So am I now. They stared at me, but in that moment, something inside me shifted. The fear that had once ruled my life had burned itself into something sharper, purpose. I stood up and grabbed my phone. Detective Harris needs to know everything, now. An hour later, I sat in the small sheriff's station just outside town. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, and the air smelled like stale coffee and rain. Detective Harris met me with a grim expression. "We checked the footage on that flash drive," he said. "He's not just stalking. He's escalating." My heart sank. What does that mean? He's moved closer, near this area. We found his car on traffic cams less than 2 miles from here. I clenched my fists. Then he's hunting us. Harris nodded slowly. "We'll catch him, but we need your cooperation. If he contacts you again, don't run. Don't hide. We'll have officers ready to move." I swallowed hard. "You're asking me to be bait?" He met my gaze evenly. "I'm asking you to help end this." The thought chilled me, but somewhere deep inside I knew he was right. Running had gotten us nowhere. Hiding had only given Marcus more power. It was time to take it back. When I got back to Renee's house, Leah met me at the door, her eyes wide. "Mama, where did you go?" "To the police," I said firmly. "They know he's close." Her eyes filled with tears. "No, please tell me we're not staying here." I cupped her face gently. "Baby, I need you to trust me. For once, we're not going to live afraid. He's been following us because he thinks we'll always run. It's time to show him he's wrong." She shook her head, panic in her voice. "Mama, if something happens to you, then at least it'll end with me standing," I said softly. Renee walked in, holding a phone. "Detective Harris is setting up surveillance. They'll be watching the road tonight." I nodded. "Good, because if Marcus comes, he won't find a scared mother. He'll find a woman who's done being silent." That night, as the sun dipped behind the horizon, I sat by the window, watching the road through the curtains. The air was still, almost too still. Leah lay on the couch, trying to rest, her head on my lap, her hand wrapped tightly around mine. "Do you think he'll come?" she whispered. I looked out into the darkening sky, my reflection staring back at me in the glass. Older, stronger, unafraid. "Oh, he'll come," I said quietly. "Men like Marcus always do. And when he did, this time I'd be ready." That night, as the clock struck midnight, Evelyn's words came true, and the final showdown between a mother's courage and a monster's obsession began. The clock struck midnight. The air outside was thick and still, that eerie kind of silence that comes before something breaks. The house was dimly lit, shadows dancing along the walls. Leah was asleep on the couch, exhausted from crying. Renee sat in the kitchen, her phone beside her, ready to call Detective Harris if anything went wrong, and I sat by the window, watching the long, empty road disappear into the darkness. I told the detective that if Marcus came, I'd handle it until backup arrived. It wasn't bravery, it was necessity, because sometimes fear has to grow teeth. Every second felt like an hour. Then, just past 12,030, I saw it. Headlights. A car creeping slowly down the road, its engine low and deliberate. My heart pounded, but I didn't move. I watched as it stopped a few yards from the driveway. The lights turned off. "Silence. He's here," I whispered. Renee's voice trembled. "The police are on their way." But I already knew this was going to end tonight. A soft knock echoed through the house. Then another, slow, controlled. I stood, my hand steady despite the storm raging inside me. Leah stirred awake, her voice trembling. "Mama?" "It's okay, baby," I whispered. "Stay with Renee." I walked toward the door. Every step felt like walking through fire, memories flashing in my mind, Leah's wedding photo, the letters, the fear in her eyes. I opened the door halfway. Marcus stood there, same cold eyes, same calm smile that used to fool everyone, but not me anymore. "Evening, Mrs. Grace," he said softly. "Beautiful night, isn't it?" "Not for you," I replied. He chuckled, tilting his head. "You think you've won, don't you?" "I don't need to win," I said. "I just need you gone." He took a slow step forward. "Where's Leah?" "She doesn't belong to you." His jaw tightened. "She's my wife." I raised my hand, the pepper spray glinting in the dim light. "You had your chance to treat her like one. Now leave." He smiled again, but this time it was darker, colder. "You think you can scare me, old woman?" I didn't blink. No, but I can stop you. He moved suddenly, fast, grabbing my wrist, trying to shove me aside. The strength in his grip made me gasp, but before I could react, a voice screamed behind me, "Mama!" Leah ran into the doorway, tears streaming down her face. "Marcus, stop!" He turned toward her, his expression softening, just for a second. "Leah, baby, I didn't mean—" But she shook her head violently. "Don't call me that. You don't get to any more." The look on her face, it wasn't fear. It was power, the kind of strength she'd forgotten she had. Marcus froze, unsure what to do, and that's when the red and blue lights flooded the driveway. Police cars screeched to a stop, their doors flying open. "Hands where we can see them," an officer shouted. Marcus turned toward me, disbelief in his eyes. "You called them?" I took a step forward, my voice steady. "No, you brought them here." Two officers grabbed him, forcing him to the ground as he shouted, "She's mine." "You can't take her from me." Leah stood behind me, trembling, her hand in mine. And as they cuffed him and led him away, I looked into his eyes one last time and whispered, "You already lost her the moment you stopped loving her." The silence that followed was deafening, but this time it wasn't heavy. It was freeing. Leah turned to me, tears glistening on her cheeks. "Mama," she said softly, "I thought we'd never get out." I smiled, brushing her hair back. "You did, baby. We both did." For the first time in years, the night felt safe again, and for the first time in forever, we weren't running anymore. But as the dust began to settle, a letter from the courthouse would remind Evelyn and Leah that healing isn't the end of the story, it's only the beginning. 2 weeks later, the house finally fell quiet for the right reasons. No footsteps in the dark, no headlights watching from the road, just peace, soft, fragile, real. The day Marcus was taken away, Detective Harris promised us, "This isn't just an arrest. This is freedom." And for once, I believed him. The charges stacked high: stalking, harassment, illegal surveillance, financial fraud. He wasn't walking away this time. The system might take its time, but truth, real truth, doesn't stay buried forever. Leah stayed with me after the arrest. At first, she barely spoke. She'd wander around the house in silence, running her fingers over the furniture like she was trying to remember who she was before all of it. Then one morning, I found her in the kitchen, humming, softly, absent-mindedly, a tune from when she was a little girl, the one I used to sing while brushing her hair. She looked up, embarrassed. "Sorry, Mama." "It just came out," I smiled. "Don't apologize for feeling alive." For the first time, she smiled back, really smiled. A week later, a letter arrived from the courthouse, the official notice of Marcus's arraignment. Leah stared at it for a long time before opening it. "Mama," she said quietly, "they want me to testify." I reached across the table and took her hand. "You don't have to if you're not ready." She shook her head. "No, I need to. I kept quiet for too long. I let him take my voice, and I want it back." There it was again, that strength I'd always seen in her, hidden under years of fear and guilt, now shining like sunlight through cracked glass. I realized something then. She wasn't the same girl who once walked out of my house chasing love. She was a woman, scarred, yes, but stronger than she ever knew. That night, we sat on the porch together, watching the sky burn orange as the sun dipped below the trees. The air was warm, carrying the faint smell of honeysuckle. Leah leaned her head on my shoulder. "Mama," she whispered, "I'm sorry for everything." I placed my hand over hers. "You don't owe me an apology, baby. You came home. That's all I ever needed." "But I hurt you," she said softly. "I left you out of my life when you were the only person who ever stood by me." I took a deep breath. "You were lost. Sometimes people have to break to find their way back." We sat there quietly, just breathing together. The world around us felt still, almost sacred. For the first time in years, my heart didn't ache. It felt whole. A few days later, Leah started volunteering at a women's shelter in town, helping women escape the same kind of pain she'd survived. When I asked why, she said, "Because someone once saved me. Now it's my turn." And that's when I knew the story wasn't ending. It was beginning again, this time with hope. As for me, I found joy in small things again. Cooking, gardening, the laughter that filled my kitchen once more. Life didn't suddenly become perfect, but it became ours. On the last page of her old pink journal, the one I'd found in the attic, Leah wrote one sentence that I'll never forget. My mother taught me that love doesn't mean never falling. It means always finding your way back. I folded that page and kept it close to my heart. Because after everything, the fear, the loss, the fight, we had found our way back to each other, and this time no one was ever taking that away again. Because sometimes the end of one story is just the beginning of another. And for Evelyn and Leah, the rest of their lives had finally begun. Did you like the story? Which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you enjoyed this story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep creating more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. There's a lot more waiting for you on my channel, Tales by Aunt Emery. Don't forget to subscribe.